Okay, so welcome everybody to the Unbridled Women Q&A. I'm Stephanie Ross. I am the race director with Flying Squirrel Adventures, and we are super excited to be bringing the race this year to Parklands of Floyd's Fork outside of Louisville. I'm going to share my screen and do a brief rundown of what the schedule looks like, and make sure I can see other participants that try to come in. I guess it'll give me a notification. Okay, so here's what our schedule looks like, and I've tweaked this a little if you haven't looked at it in the last few weeks. So check-in will be at 7:30 a.m. Sunday morning. It's Sunday, June 12th, and check-ins at 7:30 a.m. That's just going to be, hopefully you'll bring your waiver with you. See down here where it says, please print and bring this USERRA waiver with you. If you click on that, it's going to pop up this little PDF. If you print that out and have that filled out when you arrive, that will expedite your check-in. And check-in will be at the Woodland Pavilion at Broad Run Park. If you click on directions right there, it's going to open up Google Maps. And if you zoom in on Google Maps, where it takes you is to just this main parking area. Right up here is Woodland Pavilion. Woodland Pavilion, Broad Run Park. They're going to have this parking lot reserved just for us. So if you click on that, it's going to get you to the main area. Go to this parking lot. We'll be in this pavilion right here. And we'll have a banner up. You'll see us. You will be able to set up a transition area if you want in this big lawn right here. You can also use your car to transition. You're really not going to, you're not going to want to have a whole lot in this transition area. There's going to be, there'll be a couple of 3 transition areas, not right here. You won't be able to stage anything at any of those, but you really aren't going to need to. And so you're going to be transitioning mostly out of other locations. So you're welcome to leave stuff here, but you're not going to, you're going to be back here relatively early in the race and then not again until the end. So you're probably not going to want to stage a whole lot here. But feel free to, we'll have this whole yard. You can do that if you would like. So you'll do that after you check in. And then I will distribute maps at 8:30 a.m. and we'll have a briefing at 8:30 a.m. And so the maps that you receive will be of 2 types. So we will have, they'll be pre-marked. You won't have to plot anything. And you will basically get 2 types of maps. You will get this park map. So this is a map of just Broad Run Park. This inset down here shows where we're starting and finishing at the Woodland Pavilion. So that's a blow up of that. So we'll be staged here out of Woodland Pavilion. You will get this park map. It will have all of the points on this map marked on it. You will also get a topo map that is essentially that same area on a topo map, and the points will be marked on here. You will be able to complete this race pretty much relying on this trail map. If you can read this trail map, you will be able to find all of the points in this race. The topo map is useful because it's a little more precise with how the trails are. And so, for example, if you look at this trail right here that runs along the creek, see how this trail map shows it kind of this broad horseshoe curve? If you look at the topo map, you'll see, in fact, it's a pointy little bends around that reentrant right there. So just little details like that, especially with the trail. You know, a user trail map tends to be very generic in how it plots the trails. So you'll have a topo map both to give you a little more precision with how the trails are, precision with where the points are. So you know, on this park map, you might have a point and you don't, but I'll use this as an example. Like maybe on the park map, the point shows that it's on this bend in the trail right here. You know, and so if you stayed on this trail until you got to roughly that distance and that bend, you're going to find it. If I've put it on a trail, it's going to be very obviously on the trail. You would find it, but you'll probably feel a little more confident if you know how to read a trail map and you have the trail map that shows precisely where it is on there. So that's why I'm going to give you that. And then also the other big thing that this doesn't tell you, of course, is elevation, because it's not a topo map. And so if there are choices that you need to make in terms of route, and this will primarily be a factor in terms of time, whether or not you have time to get some of the bonus points. So there will be bonus points on some of the single track at the park. And so I didn't want to give you just this map that shows single track trail where you can't really see what the elevation is and get an idea of how steep it is or how long it might take you. So because it could factor into whether or not you've got time to go get those, I wanted to make sure that you had the trails on a topo map so that you got a better feel for, you know, just how windy they are and how much elevation you get, that sort of thing. So you'll basically have the park map and the topo map side by side, and the points will be on both. So you could navigate using just the park map, you could navigate using just the topo map, or more likely, you'll use both of them in tandem. And so there will be two different parks, two different park maps like this, and two coordinating topo maps like this. They will be printed on 8.5 by 11 paper. And they will be on waterproof paper. I suggest that you bring a map case if you have one anyway. And so you'll get those two sets, and then you'll have another map that is going to be an inset kind of blow up of a particular area, and it will have its own little map. So you'll be getting, I don't know what, yeah, this tells you the scale down here. This, I haven't printed that out and laid it down on a scale to see what it is. But I'll do that and I'll let you know what scale that is by race day. I can tell you that the topo maps you get are going to be 1 to 15,000. And this, the problem is this is like really humongous. So once it prints out on 8.5 by 11, I don't know what that's going to look like. I haven't printed that out yet. So anyway, I'll let you know what that scale is, but the topo map will be 1 to 15,000 scale. Okay, so you'll get your maps at 8:30. We'll have a briefing, and then the race will start at 10 a.m. It'll finish at 4 p.m. We'll do awards and have a picnic there at the pavilion at 5 p.m. In terms of distances, I know that's something everyone's going to want to know. The total distances to clear the course, let me go ahead and stop sharing. Total distances to clear the course are going to be about 2 miles of paddling, about 7 miles of trekking, and about 15 miles of biking. And so that's to clear the course. None of the points on the course are mandatory. And so essentially, as long as you, well, the transition areas will be mandatory because I want you to do each of the disciplines. So the transition areas will be mandatory. None of the actual points will be mandatory. And so within a given leg, you'll find that, say that again. So the transition areas will be mandatory, but none of the checkpoints will be mandatory. Oh, the distances. Distances are 2 miles of paddling, 7 miles of trekking, 15 miles of biking. Transition area is mandatory. And so you've got to do all of the legs basically, but within any given leg, all of the checkpoints will be optional, and you can do them in any order within a given leg. And all of these types of real specific instructions about the points, of course, will be in a set of instructions that you get along with your map. And so as long as you get to all the transition areas and cross the finish line under your own power, you're going to be an official finisher of this race. And then at that point, it's a question of how many points did you find? So all of the checkpoints are worth 1 point, and you will be placed according to, or ranked according to how many points you found and then your time. So a team that finds all of the checkpoints and comes in half an hour later than a team that found all but one of the checkpoints, the team that found them all is going to win. Even though they come in later, you're ranked by points first and then by time. Now, if you go overtime, if you come in after 4 p.m., you start to lose points. And so that team who cleared the course, if they came in 5 minutes late, they would lose a couple of checkpoints. And so that's going to drop them down in the ranks. So points first, then time, and you lose points if you come in after 4 p.m. So time management is going to be super important. I do expect the top teams to clear the course. We are vetting the course next week. We'll do a time trial of it, and I will tweak it as necessary to make sure that the distances and the time are such that the top teams will clear. And when I say top teams, I'm saying maybe top 10%. I would expect to clear the course within the 6 hours. That's my goal anyway, which means that for most teams, you'll have to make some strategic decisions about which points you're going to go after and which points to drop. And you'll see once you get all of the information, there are a couple of different places where I sort of clue you in that, okay, this is a point that you're probably going to want to drop. If you don't think you're going to be in the top 10% of teams here, if your team's goal is to come and have fun and figure out what adventure racing is about and finish the race still friends, then that's a point you're going to drop. And you'll see, and I'll be happy to address that as well once I hand maps out and you see where the points are. You know, if you're a newer team and you want some advice from me on which points to drop, I'll be happy to give you that. I'll give that to everybody when we give the maps out, because, you know, I want you all to be able to make good strategic decisions about your points if you're not planning to clear the course, and make sure that you maximize your points and get back on time. So there will be, in terms of the different terrain that you'll be on. So the trekking, you'll be doing some trekking on pavement. You'll be doing trekking on trails. You'll be trekking off trails. So there will be an orienteering segment. The orienteering course is being designed by our friends at Orienteering Louisville. It will be on an orienteering map, and it will have, right now, the plan is to have 7 points. Again, once we vet the course next week, we may tweak that. But right now, the plan is to have 7 points out there for you to go visit. You can do those in any order. And that is a segment where we'll have some much easier points and some sort of intermediate level points, maybe 1 or 2 that I would consider more advanced, but I'm keeping those generally on the easier side. And those are points where I'll tell you which ones are going to be harder and which ones are going to be easier, so that, you know, if you're newer to navigation and orienteering, you can take that into consideration when you decide how to approach that leg. The biking will be predominantly on paved trail. Now, paved trail, if you haven't been at Parklands, understand that the paved trail there, it's not a rail trail like you might have been on, you know, flat, straight, paved trail. It's a really lovely paved trail with lots of bends and turns and elevation change. So you'll be doing some climbing and some descending. It's got some terrific long bridges and curved bridges. It's just an awesome, fun trail. It's a lot of fun to ride. So you'll be primarily on that. There will be some bike points that are on some single track. It's pretty beginner friendly single track. And those are all, well, as with all the points, they're optional. And the way I've got them set up, it will be, you know, very apparent how you can incorporate those. There are a couple of different times. So you can choose to do the single track bike points in 2 different legs. So there'll be a couple of different bike legs, and you can choose to do those single track points in the first bike leg or the second bike leg. So, you know, you can kind of decide, do I want to wait and see if I've got time later to do those? Do I want to go ahead and knock them out? You'll have that choice. So there's a little bit of strategy there that allows you to sort of play to your strengths or your team's strengths. The paddling. So Floyd's Fork is a wild river. It's a natural flow river. We don't have any control over it. So that will be based entirely on precipitation in the week leading up to the race. And so we will basically keep an eye on that. And if the water levels are dangerously high, we'll cancel the paddle. And if we do that, we will, you know, make up that time that you would have spent on the paddle predominantly through trekking, through some additional trekking. Maybe add a little bit more biking as well, but basically we'll bulk up those other legs so that you're still out there. When I say I expect the top teams to clear the course, I expect them to clear it in just under 6 hours, right? I want you all to get your money's worth. I want basically all teams to be out there very close to 6 hours. Yeah, so if we have to cancel the paddle, I'll lengthen those other legs to make up for that. So expect to be out there the full 6 hours. There is only one of the transition areas where I may have a water jug. It depends on what the temperatures are. If it's a super, super hot day, then I'll go ahead and have a water jug at this one transition area. Otherwise, I'm going to count on you all to carry with you what you need. And there are a lot of amenities at this park. There's a lot of infrastructure at this park. You'll come across bathrooms, you'll come across running water, lots and lots of amenities that you'll pass by. So I don't think you're going to need me to provide water for you is what I'm saying. But if it's super hot, I'm going to have it at this one transition area anyway. But I'll let you know that before the race starts, if there's going to be water at that TA or not. And, you know, if it's 80 or above, you can assume that I will have that at that TA. Let's see. You won't be able to stage anything anywhere other than at Woodland Pavilion. So basically you'll take everything with you when you leave, all of your mandatory gear and all that. So let's look at the gear list. So individual mandatory gear, headlamp with spare batteries. Obviously, I don't expect you to need a headlamp. There aren't any caves here. I'm not sending you into any dark places. The headlamp is in case you get wildly lost, which I don't expect, but in case you do and you end up out there after dark, I'll be a lot happier knowing you've got a headlamp. Same thing with a whistle, same thing with a knife. Okay, optional. So rollerblades or roller skates, scooter or skateboard. So there's about a 2-mile stretch of paved trail that you will need to trek. And I thought, you know, even though it's a really nice paved trail, it's still just trekking on a paved trail. So let's make that a little bit more interesting. And so I've given you the option here of basically using wheels. So if you decide to rollerblade, skate, scooter, or skateboard that stretch, number one, you need to wear your bike helmet for that, or some type of helmet appropriate for that. And that's because, remember, I said how this trail winds and has a lot of elevation gain and loss. So this 2-mile stretch is an elevation loss, and I think I put in here what it is, 175 feet. So you're going to drop 175 feet in elevation as you do this, which means you better be pretty confident that whatever you choose to wheel down that hill is that you're going to be able to keep it in control. Is it faster to do that versus just running? That's one of the decisions you all have got to make. This is something that we've done in the mission. If you were on here earlier, you heard Sarah and I talking about the Mission Adventure Race. Brian has done this a couple of different years in the mission. And the most recent year was, I think, 2 years ago. And my teammate Sarah and I both got scooters, and we did the scooter instead of the run. And I swear the people running were faster than we were, and my quads were completely trashed from doing the scooter. So in hindsight, we both agreed we would have been better off running. So I'm not saying you're going to be any faster on this. This is a net downhill, so maybe, but yeah, just be careful. If you decide to do it, make sure you've got something that you can put some brakes on, or you're willing to, you know, drop and roll or whatever. Don't dislocate a shoulder over this little 2-mile stretch. Okay, so if you elect to do that, then you will have to carry your equipment, both your helmet and your wheels. You'll have to carry them. It's a very short distance, maybe half a mile before you start that paved trail section. And then after you get off that paved trail section, you would have to carry them then about another mile. So you'll need to have something that you can either put them in your pack, or if you can just strap it on you or whatever, you'll need to carry them about 1.5 miles if you use that. So there is that, and your helmet as well, as I said. Okay. Other gear, mandatory team gear. This is all pretty self-explanatory. Water purification. I don't care if you use iodine tablets, if you use a filter bottle, if you use drops, whatever, doesn't matter as long as it'll purify water. Little medical kit. Oh yeah, so the 1 to 24,000 plotter. These are some optional points. So there's going to be one segment of the race where you will have several points, and you don't have to get all of them. In fact, you won't be given credit if you get all of them. You'll only be given credit for a certain subset of the total points that are out there. And at each one of those points, there's a little challenge of some kind. And these are all navigation-based challenges, with the exception of a couple. And so when I say navigation-based challenges, what I mean are things like you'll have a little snippet of topo map with UTM grid lines on it, and it will say which of the following features is at coordinates, 1600452. I'll give you an easting and a northing. I'll give you 2 coordinates, UTM grid coordinates, and you'll have to figure out which of A, B, or C features is at that coordinate. So pretty basic in terms of plotting. You're not actually plotting the point yourself per se, but you'll use a plotter and figure out, and these aren't going to be close. They're not intended to be subtle or tricky or anything like that. It's going to be, a snippet of topo map, and once you get your plotter on there on the correct coordinate, it's going to be a trail intersection or a hilltop. And your other options are going to be, creek junction or something in a totally separate part of the topo map. So it's not going to be subtle. It's going to be very obvious. And that's true for all of the navigation challenges in this section. So I think I've got one of the points set up with the UTM coordinates, maybe two, I can't remember. And then another one, for instance, will be, okay, when you get to this checkpoint, there'll be a little flag there. And from that flag, at a bearing of 140 degrees, which of the following do you see? And so you'll have to take your compass and take a bearing of 140 degrees and tell me, is it a bridge or a hilltop or a tower or whatever, you know, which of these three features? And it'll be multiple choice, A, B, and C. And again, it won't be close. Like if you're in the right quadrant, there's only going to be one of those three things that you're looking at, right? So it's not intended to be a subtle, if you've done a trail O or something like that, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be super obvious, in part because I intend for you to move through this section very quickly. My intent is you get to the thing, you go 140 degrees, oh, it's a tower, whatever, and you move on. You're not going to be spending a lot of time at any one of these navigation challenges. So there's the UTM, there's the bearing, and then there's pace counting. From this point, pace count 30 meters. Are you at a bench, a boulder, a trail intersection, whatever features? So pace counting, UTM, and bearing. I think those are the only three varieties of navigation based challenges. And then if you're super nervous about that and you just think, oh man, that's going to be so stressful for me, two of the points are take a team selfie at this point. Now you're going to have to travel longer to get to those. So you can take a super short direct route from the beginning to the end of this section by doing these navigation challenges, or you can take a less direct route, but you only have to take a selfie there. So, and then the other option you've got, if you're nervous whether you got something right or not, you can always get more points. You can get all of the points in that segment if you want. You're only going to get credit for the subset. But like as a hedge, if you're not sure you have one right or not, you can go ahead and do another one just to have sort of a backup as a safety. Okay, so don't stress out about it. When I say navigation challenges, they're super beginner friendly. You're not going to have trouble with them, and there are options to do some other, you know, even easier things. So I don't think anybody is going to have any trouble completing all of those. But so that's why there's a plotter on here. You're not actually going to have to plot any of your checkpoints, but you can use a plotter if you need to do the UTM. You know, you may not even need it. You may just be able to go, oh, okay, I can see I need to go a quarter of the way into the UTM and halfway up, and you know, you don't even need it. But I advise bringing it just in case. And Sharpie marker or just equivalent marker, something to write down for this section that I was just talking about. You'll need to write down what your answers are for all of these different challenges. Your mandatory bike gear, that's all pretty self-explanatory, per racer, per team. And then paddle gear. So we're providing all of the paddle gear that you'll need. You're welcome to bring your own PFD. Pace counting will be in metric. Yeah, it'll say 30 meters or 25 meters or whatever. Yeah. So, and you know what I'll do, Melinda? Let me make a note. I will have set out at the Woodland Pavilion, I will set out 100 meters. So when you pace count, what you're pace counting typically are 100 meter increments. So, and what you do is it's every other step. So basically what you're doing is counting each left footfall or each right footfall, whichever you prefer, from your starting point, and over 100 meters, you have a set number of paces. So for me, it's about 72. So I'm going to go 100 meters in 72 paces. if you don't know what your pace count is, I will set out at the Woodland Pavilion. I'll mark out a 100-meter stretch, and you can figure out what your pace count is that morning if you haven't done it before then. I suggest you do it before then because you're going to have lots of other things to do. And you can do that going out to, you can go out to a local track and use like a 400-meter track and, you know, figure out the markings on there. 200 meters is halfway around. Or you can also use, there are plenty of apps now like Map My Run, or you all know more about those than I do, that will tell you exactly, you know, how many, or at least close enough, how far up. You can also zoom in on like Google Earth or on CalTopo and measure a known distance. Like I did mine from my house out, like the corner of my house out to the end of my driveway. Turned out to be like right at 200 meters. And so, yeah, if you can find a 100-meter stretch somewhere, go out and figure out your pace count between now and then. But if you don't, or if you just want to practice, I'll have set up a little 100-meter segment on that lawn there beside the Woodland Pavilion, and you can practice that morning if you want to. I just have to remember to do it. Okay, so paddle gear, back to paddle gear. You can bring your own paddle and PFD if you would like. If you do, we'll have you stage those at the put-in before the race. You know what I'll probably do is I'll just have a vehicle at the Woodland Pavilion, and you can toss them in there, and we'll take them to the put-in for you. You will have to take them from, you will have to carry your paddle and PFD from the takeout, but you'll only be carrying it a very short distance. So I would still, I would bring my kayak paddle and my PFD, knowing the distance that you'll have to carry it. So we'll stage it for you. You'll just need to bring it back. So if you use rentals, they will be canoe paddles. You can bring your own canoe or kayak paddle if you'd like, but the rental paddles will be canoe paddles. Okay, that is all mandatory gear. So GPS devices. If you've got a GPS enabled watch that you want to track your route on or whatever, feel free to do that. You just need to put it in your backpack. So once you start it, put it in your pack so that it's not out and visible to you during the race, and that'll be fine. I think that's the main thing people are going to want to know about that. Okay, that's all I can think of to tell you right now. We will have vegetarian options for dinner. I'm a vegetarian. I like vegetarians. The other option we'll have is going to be barbecue. So we'll be doing barbecue sandwiches and something else. Probably veggie burgers or something like that. Simple stuff. Watermelon, lemonade. Okay, I'm ready for questions. Can't think of anything else I would want to know, but I'm sure there are things. Anybody? It is going to be a lot of fun, Dana. All right, no questions. I can't even believe it. All right. So is everyone who's on the, yeah, I'll tell you a little more about the paddle. Is everyone who's on here actually registered? Is there anybody who's on this Zoom call who's not registered yet? You're welcome. If you bring your own paddle, we will stage it at the put-in. You will have to carry it from the takeout a very short distance. I would still bring my own paddle if you've got one that you're used to. Okay, so the paddle. So Floyd's Fork is it's a fairly small creek, and depending on water levels can be super fun or can be a drag. It would have to be really, really, really dry for me to cancel the paddle on account of low water. Like the livery who's renting us the boats would have to say, I'm not really comfortable renting those canoes to you because they're going to get so torn up being dragged. Because here's the thing, it's only 2 miles. I don't care if you pick up the canoe and hike it down the river for 2 miles. You can do that for 2 miles. Like there's going to be enough pool, you know, and navigable stuff that I would still have you paddle. Unless he just tells me, no way, you're going to be dragging over rocks and you're going to tear up my boats and I'm not renting the boats to you. So like, there's a much higher chance that you're going to be paddling on low water and having to get out and in and out and in to get over riffles than that you'll be in high water. If the water's dangerously high, and it would, I would be very surprised. You know, the reason we put this in June was to get us out of, you know, May when the chances of the water being too high were really good. So it would be surprising if we had so much water that we needed to cancel it. You know, it's a little creek, but it can really hold quite a bit. I've paddled it at a couple of different water levels. There's nothing, it's a very beginner friendly canoe. You know, even with the water level high, it's just pushy at that point. Like there are no real obstacles. There are no super technical rapids or anything like that that you're going to have to navigate. So, you know, you're talking about like class 1 water, moving water. So yeah, the much bigger risk on the paddle is that it's going to be a drag and slow. You should not be worried that it's going to be like technical, you know, whitewater paddling or anything like that. It won't be. Bugs, mosquitoes, biting flies, yeah. All of those. Every one of the biting things we have in Kentucky. If it bites you, we have it in Kentucky. Ticks, all of them. Yeah. Actually, I don't know about biting. Well, we do have biting flies. They're not a big problem. The bigger issues are going to be mosquitoes and ticks. So I strongly suggest that for ticks, number one, I think you should always wear long pants in adventure races. If you're one of these people who is blessed enough to not be super bothered by poison ivy and ticks and things like that, like my husband, he hardly has any kind of reaction to anything. It's horrible. And I just like, I can look at a fern and break out. So I wear long pants always, no matter how hot it is. And I tuck my pants into my socks because that's what keeps the ticks out and the chiggers. And then I spray everything with permethrin the night before. So permethrin is super toxic. You don't want it on your skin. It's only for clothes and gear. And what you do is you lay your pants and your socks and your shoes out the night before and you douse them thoroughly. Like they should be damp when you have finished spraying them with the permethrin on all sides. And then you hang them up and let them dry overnight. And that, as far as I know, is the only thing that's really somewhat effective at keeping ticks off. So do that. And then what happens is ticks attach at the bottom and crawl up. Same thing with chiggers. So if you're wearing socks, it doesn't matter how long your socks are. If your pants aren't tucked into them, they attach at your shoes or your socks, they're going to keep crawling up until they get to your skin. So wherever that sock ends, that's where they're going to be. So I always tuck my pants into my socks. And then I just use regular, like deep spray for my arms and my neck. So there's that. You're welcome. It will be, the nice thing about it, even if it's super hot, you will be in a lot of shade most of the day. There are some places where it's a little bit exposed, and like one of our transition areas is a bit exposed without tree canopy, but for the most part, you'll be in tree canopy through the day. So, you know, you'll want sunscreen on your arms and your face, but it shouldn't be too bad. Even if it's a hot day, you should be able to regulate. Dense vegetation or long grasses. Yeah, so the only place where you're going to encounter dense vegetation and long grasses will be on the orienteering section. And now I'll have to find out. We certainly have tried to locate the points to keep you out of like third level green, but you know, in the summer, everything's thicker anyway. So you definitely will get into some vegetation. It should not be, you know, heinous. And when we vet these points next week, we'll, if it is, we'll move them. So. But, you know, that being said, I would still wear long pants. There will be poison ivy. Almost certainly there will be poison ivy. You know, if you're on a river and getting out of a river in Kentucky, you're going to be seeing poison ivy, like almost certainly. So if you're allergic to poison ivy, for sure, wear long pants. There's just no way to avoid that. That being said, the boat access points at this park actually are really nice. They're developed rock, you know, big rock steps and these ramps to bring your boats up and all that sort of stuff. So actually you may not have poison ivy getting in and out of the boat there, but undoubtedly you will see poison ivy on the course. Are there places for supporters to cheer us on? Yes, absolutely. Bring friends. This is going to be this is going to be a super spectator friendly race. And we will have spectator maps so that they can see how to follow you through the day. And they should definitely come and cheer you on and bring a camera because they'll get to see you a lot through this race. Yeah, I know, long pants if it's hot, but for me, I'm much more allergic to poison ivy and ticks and all those things than I am to heat stroke. Your choice. I'm just putting the information out there. You decide what to do with it. You're a big girl. You can wear your O socks. All right. Any other questions? Going once. I came a little late. How's the biking? Super beginner friendly biking, Selena. It is predominantly on a paved bike trail that is not flat. It's got a lot of curves to it and some elevation gain and loss. It's a super fun paved bike trail. There is some single track that's optional. All the points are optional for that matter. But if you want to clear the course, you'll need to do some single track. And so there are two different sections of single track. A few points on one section of single track that is super beginner friendly, not very long. And then one optional point that's on one stretch of single track that's a little more challenging. Super short, but more challenging. And you know, if you've been biking anytime at all, you won't have any trouble with it. Yeah, if you haven't, then maybe you get off and walk part of it, and that's okay too. But the bike trails are by and large very beginner friendly. Anything else? Is it possible to switch between a road bike and mountain bike during the race? I'm going to say no. I think that, yeah, no, it's the way it's set up will not be conducive to that. You'll either need to commit to one or the other. If you're going to do the optional bike points, then you need to commit to a mountain bike. How many sets of maps per team? Every racer will get a complete set of maps. So 2. Anything else? Right. The link to the mandatory gear is on Facebook page. No, it's on the it's on our website, unbridledwomenAR.com. Has schedule, gear list, FAQs. And if you go to that schedule page, it's got the map as well with the directions and the name of the place where we check in. The schedule page is also where you find the USARA waiver to bring with you. It's also got a fun little widget that tells you the weather in Louisville. Right now it's 66 degrees in Louisville. So lots of good information on the website. You can go check that out. All right, restrooms only available at TA, or are there others along the way? They are along the way. Yeah, there are lots of toilet options along this course. Do we complete the legs in a certain order or choose when to complete each leg? So you will complete the legs in the order given. There is the one that I mentioned, the one bike segment that you could complete in either of 2 legs. So you do the legs in order, but then there's this one set of points that you can choose to do in one leg or another. If you look at the pictures that are on the home page, the little scroll of pictures from Parklands, you'll see there's one that has some concrete looking steps like that. That's actually one of the access points. I don't know if it's ours, but a lot of the access points look like that. They've got these fabulous developed boat access points. Noisemakers such as cowbells allowed in the park. Oh yeah, sure. Bring the cowbells. bring the kids. So the, let me show you our, okay. So here's the pavilion where we're gonna be. You see this right here? Cliffside Playground and Spray Ground. That thing is fantastic. This whole thing is like a big spray ground, or maybe over here, I can't remember. There will be loads of kids out here. So yeah, cowbells won't be a problem, trust me. There are gonna be so many screaming kids over here. Nobody's gonna care about your cowbell. But yeah, so if you've got kids and someone who can watch them over here at this spray ground, they're gonna love it. If it's a hot day, it's very cool. This park has so many cool things. There's just a lot. The infrastructure at this park is world class. I'm telling you, it's incredible. It really is impressive. And you will all get a free 1-year membership to Parklands with your registration. So it's open to the public. You can come enjoy it anytime, but as a member, you'll get invitations to special events, and you get a little newsletter that comes in your inbox and tells you about upcoming events and kind of cool stuff. It's kind of cool stuff. So you can go back. How many teams are registered? The last I saw, Lori, I think there were 25. Let me look what the latest is. This says signups 48, which would be 24 teams. That sounds right. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's good. So registration is open until next Sunday, right? Yeah, next Sunday. So if you know of anybody on the fence, pull them on over. We got 1 week left to get registered. And we've got cool finisher medals. Did you all see our finisher medals on our Facebook page? They're wine stoppers. If you haven't seen them, I'll pull them up while you all think of more questions. Let me see. What's another company? Let's see. Here it is. Okay. Here they are. Look at that. It's a little wine stopper with our little logo, little lanyard. So those are our finisher medals. I'm excited about that. The shirts are women's specific shirts with our little logo. They're 100% cotton, and they're going to be like a light green with our color logo on the front. And awards are going to be some thermos bottles that Myra is making for us with our logo on them. And I think Parklands is throwing in some, I think they're like coffee table books or something about the Parklands. Karen Clark has been working on getting all kinds of swag from sponsors for your swag bags. So there's going to be lots of cool swag in your swag bags. It's going to be good. I've never tried a kayak paddle in a canoe. Do you think it is advantageous? Yes, I do. I always use a kayak paddle in a canoe. And if you're a very proficient canoe paddler, then you can paddle more quickly with a canoe paddle. If you're not proficient at either one already, then it's a lot easier to learn to use a kayak paddle, I think. So if you're a beginner, if you have a kayak paddle available to you, I would suggest bringing a kayak paddle. It's typically a little bit faster. Again, unless you're a super experienced canoe paddler, you're probably going to be faster with a kayak paddle, and the learning curve is a little lower. Okay. Anything else? I think I've shared everything I know to share. Okay, I am going to wrap this up. We've been exactly an hour. And certainly if you think of anything after we finish up here, feel free to reach out. I would prefer that you post questions on our Facebook page, just because then everyone can see the question and I can answer it to the group as a whole. But you know, if it's something particular that not everyone else needs to know, then certainly let me know. We will have an EMT on site throughout the race. If you have any particular medical conditions or anything that she needs to know about, her name is Summer. I'll ask you to let her know that. And in fact, if you want to, if you do, go ahead and write down whatever information that you would want her to have and have your name on there, and give that to her before the start of the race. And that way we can make sure that she's fully informed. If you've got, you know, a particular allergy or something, if you're allergic to bees or wasps, something like that, and you carry an EpiPen, make sure that your teammate knows where that is and knows how to use it. And then again, make sure that Summer knows that before you take off. So I think that's it. I will see you all in just a few weeks. Have fun. Keep training, not too much.